Welcome back, dear friends, to another exciting episode of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. And without any further ado, dear friends, we'll have our opening prayer. Thank you so much. Create in me a pure heart, O my God, and renew a tranquil conscience within me, O my hope. Through the Spirit of power, confirm thou me in thy cause, O my best beloved, and by thy light of thy glory, reveal unto me thy path, O thou the goal of my desire. Through the power of thy transcendent might, lift me up unto the heaven of thy holiness, O source of my being, and by the breezes of thine eternity, gladden me, O thou who art my God. Let thine everlasting melodies breathe tranquility on me, O my companion, and let the riches of thine ancient countenance deliver me from all except thee, O my master, and let the tidings of the revelation of thine incorruptible essence bring me joy, O thou who art the most manifest of the manifest, and the most hidden of the hidden. Baha'u'lláh. First of all, welcome back. So happy to have each one of you. Tonight, we are going to continue our study of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, this immortal letter written by the beloved guardian in the World Order of Bahá'u'lláh letters. Okay, so in our last class, we were covering paragraphs 1 through 3, and we're just going to finish up the slides that we had for paragraphs 1 through 3, and this is going to be studying what is these different ages, the heroic age, the formative age, the golden age, just to clarify each one of these. And then we're going to get into paragraphs 4 and 5. Hopefully tonight we'll finish even paragraphs 4 and 5 in our slides also. Okay, so let us get into that, and let me share my screen for all of you so you can be on board. Okay, here we go. And make sure everybody's in the room. Okay, so this is all to do with our section in paragraph 3. And you're saying, Ehsan, where are we in this book or in the World Order of Baha'u'lláh if you're looking at your book? We're studying paragraph 3, which is on page 98. Okay, it starts with Abdu'l-Bahá's ascension. So if you have this one, it's on starting at the top of the page on page 98, paragraph 3. And this is why we're studying all of these aspects of ages, heroic age, formative age, and golden age, because in paragraph 3, it actually references these ages. In paragraph 3, it mentions the primitive, the apostolic age of the faith. It mentions the formative age, which is the transitional and formative period of the faith. And it also mentions the golden age. So we want to just highlight these different ages as it was mentioned in paragraph 3, okay? So the first stage is the heroic age, otherwise referred to the beloved guardian Shogh Effendi as the primitive age or the apostolic age. This stage began with the declaration of the Bab on the 23rd of May, 1844, and ended with the passing of His Holiness Abdu'l-Bahá on the 28th of November, 1921, or more particularly, this is the words of the beloved guardian, as the guardian states, with the passing of the greatest holy leaf. And that was the sister of His Holiness Abdu'l-Bahá, July 1932. So from July 1932, all the way, we don't know when the end of the formative age will be. So that is the start of the formative age, the passing of the greatest holy leaf, okay? So the primitive age of the Baha'i era, this is from the beloved guardian, it says, this primitive age of the Baha'i era, unapproached in spiritual fecundity by any period associated with the mission of the founder of any previous dispensation was impregnated from its inception to its termination with the creative energies generated through the advent of two independent manifestations and the establishment of a covenant unique in the spiritual annals of mankind. So you can say, Esan, how is this faith different than any other faith in the history of the world? It's because we've had two twin manifestations at the same time on this planet, okay? As well as we have this thing called the covenant, okay? So the manifestations of God have injected this unique covenant into the world. And so that the manifestations of God, their word, their ministry, is their writings is all protected under this covenant. So this is unique in the history of mankind. So this aspect. Carrying on, dear friends, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi has identified 3 distinct epochs of 9, of 39, and of 29 years duration in the heroic age. So these were the periods of the ministries, okay, in the heroic age, which are associated respectively of the Babi dispensation, the ministries of His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, and of Abdul Baha, the central figures of our faith. So of 9, of 39, and of 29. Interestingly, they're all 9s. So that's just another interesting observation. So 9, 29, and 39. Okay, these are the periods of the ministries of His Holiness the Bab, Baha'u'lláh, and Abdul Baha. Now we go to the formative age. I know we're moving fast, but we want to, if you have a question, dear friends, jump in. The transitional or formative age, which every one of you are in as of right now. The transitional or formative age is the period of evolution of the faith towards the unfoldment of its potentials and the emergence of the world order envisaged by Baha'u'lláh. I remember Mr. Frutan, when I was serving on when I went on pilgrimage, God bless his soul, Mr. Frutan said, Esan, this period that we're living in, this formative age, it's called the messy phase. This is the messy time. You know, this is when we gotta work and it's gonna be messy. So this, I loved when he said that. I remember to this day, right? He said, this is the time of messiness. So in my little illustration here, the heroic age is that beautiful little caterpillar. But then the formative age is the stage of the pupa, all right? You don't know what's going on in here. And in the words of our dear Mr. Frutan, to me, as pilgrim notes, would be, it is a messy stage in there. It's a lot of action going on, and you don't want to see what's going on because it's messy, right? So there's a lot of mistakes possibly going on, but also a lot of effort needs to be happening to change and transform and work on the inner self, transformation, because you got to go from here to here, from the caterpillar to the butterfly. This is a lot of work needed, right? So that's why our Mr. Dear Frutan to me said, Esan, this is the messy stage. You got to work on this stage. So it takes a lot of effort. So that was my anecdote there. So in the Baha'i writings, there is no indication of the duration of the formative age. However, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi indicates that the formative age consists of a number of epochs. So stage after stage after stage will be during this period, and they will gradually emerge over time. So in one of his letters, the beloved guardian describes the major events to occur during the formative age. These are the major events, and these are all cited in Citadel of Faith, okay? Citadel of Faith, it's on page 6. So these are the different stages that will be unfolded during the formative age. He foresees that during the succeeding epochs, the last and crowning stage in the erection of the framework of the administrative order of the faith of Baha'u'lláh, namely the election of the Universal House of Justice, will have been completed. Well, check mark to that one. We did that one, 1963. So count that one. We did A. A is done. Now, next one. The Kitab Aqdas, the mother book of his revelation, will have been codified and its laws promulgated. Okay? So we can say, yes, we did that one too. So we've done A and B. So the codification of the Kitab Aqdas was done. And that was, and we're going to see the dates and all the time coming up when that was done. Okay, that was one of the goals of the 9-year plan. So that was accomplished, and we'll look into that. Now, C, the lesser peace will have been established. So this one is not yet complete. And we also, in our session on Advent and Divine Justice, reviewed what the lesser peace is. So the lesser peace is when the countries of the world, the governments of the world will come together without even knowledge of the faith. And they will come together to bring peace to the world, in that sense, coming together to work towards bringing the establishment of peace. So this is a degree of political unity. So this is what the lesser peace is. And this has not happened yet. And the beloved guardian says this is going to be one of the stages in bringing about one of the stages of the formative age. The next one will be the unity of mankind will have been achieved and its maturity attained, as well as the plan conceived by Abdul-Baha will have been executed. The emancipation of the faith from the fetters of religious orthodoxy will have been effected. Interestingly, I want to point this one out. Look how far down the emancipation of the faith is. You know, God help the friends in the countries of the cradle of the faith, you know? So even the unity of mankind will have been established, okay? And all the plans of the world will have come together. The countries of the world will have come together for the establishment of peace. But still, the faith will have not been emancipated in those countries. You see how far down in the list of the beloved guardian as a criterion for the major events of the formative age. So the emancipation of the faith from the fetters of religious orthodoxy will have been effected. And then the final one that the beloved guardian outlines in the major events of the formative age is, and its independent religious status will have been universally recognized. So the whole world will recognize the Baha'i faith, this faith of Baha'u'lláh. So those are all the different stages, and this is in Citadel of Faith. Moving on. Thus far, the Baha'i faith has passed through the following epochs of the formative age. As I mentioned, the first epoch began with the ministry of the beloved guardian as the guardian of the Baha'i faith in 1921 and ended in 1944 to 46, and the closing of the first century after the declaration of the Bab. So these are that was the first epoch, 1921 to 44, 46. And then the second epoch.
Can I stop you right there?
Yes, dear Zamruhijam, please.
So
What would you
guardian passed away in 1957. So why does his guardianship end in 46?
That was a great question. Okay, this is not. This is the first epoch. It's not to do with the guardianship. This is one of the periods of time. It's not to do with the guardianship. So
Okay.
this was to do, because 1944 was the 100th anniversary of the Declaration of the Bab. Okay, so 100 years after the Declaration of the Bab. So this was a very important time. Also in 1944, that was when God Passes By came out. So this was a very important period. So from 1921, passing of Abdul Baha, to 1944. And I'm honestly not quite sure why it says ended in 1944 to 46. This is anywhere you look, it always says 1944 to 46. I think it's because of war years. Those were 1944, 45. So it was during the war years. So that's why it was like that. Okay. But good questions, Amrija. And friends, don't hesitate. You have a question, jump in, okay? Now, the second epoch began 1946 and then ended in 1963. So 1963 was when the Universal House of Justice was elected. So this epoch extended the developments of the first epoch by calling for the consummation of this laboriously constructed administrative order, and was to witness the formulation of a succession of teaching plans designed to facilitate the development of the faith beyond the confines of the Western Hemisphere and the continent of Europe. The second epoch thus clearly demonstrated the further maturation of the institutions of the administrative order. So I also want to jump on this. In our class on Advent of Divine Justice, you may remember, all my friends who were in our class on Advent of Divine Justice, that the first 7-year plan, 1937, okay? So 1937 was a 7-year plan. So it finished 7 years, 1944, okay? So that was a period of the first 7-year plan. And then at the culmination of that period, the goals of that period was really to take the faith to all the areas, all this, have a goal of having the faith in every single state within the United States and every province in Canada, and then go take it to the South America and Central America. So the faith would have intercontinental reaches. In that sense, it was really spreading from that period of 1937 to 1944 during the first epoch. Now, during this second epoch, which we are just addressing, this is from the Supreme Body. It says here, the teaching plans designed to facilitate the development of the faith beyond the confines of the Western Hemisphere. So now, in the first epoch, it was just really taking the faith from America to South America to Central America, and had already gone up to Canada. So now it was going to the world and not just Europe. So this was a big step happening into the second epoch. So this is the actual letter. And if you remember, during that period from 1957 to 1963, there was a period called the Ministry of the Custodians. And so the custodians of the cause were really in charge of the faith and helping the faith during the passing, after the passing of the beloved guardian, really following his instructions to the completion of the 10-year crusade and fulfilling the wishes of the beloved guardian. And the most amazing thing happened in the history of faith. When it was time for the election of the Supreme Body, the Universal House of Justice, the Ministry of the Custodians, for the first time, this has never happened in the history of faith, when individuals that were in charge, per se, of the religious body willingly removed themselves from the possibility of election. So the hands of the cause of God, the minister, removed themselves from the possibility of being voted on as a member of the Universal House of Justice. What an incredible event that was. What a sign of humility and love and that occasion was. We're going to look at that much more in detail. That's going to come up in our section when we're looking at studying the House of Justice itself. So sorry about that. That was a segue, but I get blown away by their humility. So this is the letter from the hands of the cause of God, announcing the election of the Supreme Body. It says, on the occasion of worldwide celebrations of the most great Jubilee, commemorating the centenary of the ascension of Baha'u'lláh to the throne of his sovereignty, with hearts overflowing with gratitude for his unfailing protection and overflowing bounties, we joyously announce to the friends of the East and West the election of the supreme legislative body ordained by him in his most holy book and promised by him to receive his infallible guidance. Members of the first historic House of Justice, duly elected by delegates comprising members of 56 national assemblies. And these are the members: Charles Wolcott, Ali Nakhjavani, H. Bora Kovalin, Ian Semple, Lutfullah Hakim, David Hoffman, Hugh Chance, Amos Gibson, and Hushman Fatah Azam. To the jubilation of the entire Baha'i world for the victorious completion of beloved Guardian's unique crusade is now added the humble gratitude and profound thanksgiving of the followers of Baha'u'lláh for the erection of the Universal House of Justice, that august body to whom all believers must turn, whose destiny is to guide the unfoldment of his embryonic world order through the administrative institutions prescribed by Baha'u'lláh, elaborated by Abdul Baha, and laboriously erected by Shoghi Effendi, and to ensure the early dawn of the golden age of the faith, when the word of the Lord will cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. What a beautiful letter. And this line right here is so awesome. So it shows the stages of of how they're per se building this superstructure, the administrative order. So here it is. I love this language right here. It says, the unfoldment of his embryonic world order through the administrative institutions prescribed by Baha'u'lláh. So it's like Baha'u'lláh is the commander-in-chief. He gives the order. And then the commander-in-chief then elaborated by Abdul Baha. So the commander-in-chief has given the orders, then the generals. General Abdul Baha has now taken the orders from the commander-in-chief, and now he is executing the orders to his infantry. And after that, it says, and now laboriously erected by the beloved Guardian. So it says, we are in the army of light. We are his army, and the commander-in-chief, His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, has been working to erect this administrative order. So moving on, dear friends. And here is a beautiful picture of the first House of Justice, the members of the Universal House of Justice. This is at the Shrine of the Guardian, the Shrine Gardens on Mount Carmel. You could see them from left to right: Charles Wolcott, Amos Gibson, Hushman Fatah Azam, Hugh Chance, Bora Kovalin, Ian Semple, and Lutfullah Hakim, David Hoffman, and Ian Nakhjavani, Ali Nakhjavani. You can see how young these dear friends were back then. It's such a lovely picture. And then we moved to the Third Epoch, okay? This was a period from 1963 and ended in 1986, okay? 1963 to 1986. And this is from the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice. This is what they wrote. The period of the Third Epoch encompassed 3 world plans involving all national spiritual assemblies under the direction of the Universal House of Justice, namely the 9-year plan, 1964 to 73, the 5-year plan, 74 to 79, and the 7-year plan, 79 to 86. This Third Epoch witnessed the emergence of the faith from obscurity. This is such an important event. The faith of God, the faith of His Holiness Baha'u'lláh, was now for the first time emerging from obscurity, and the initiation of activities designed to foster the social and economic development of communities. So prior to this 1986, the spiritual energies, I will make this into an analogy so everyone can understand the significance of what this third epoch period is. Prior to this period of the third epoch, now the emergence from this faith from obscurity. Prior to that, all during the heroic age and all the way prior up to this period of the third epoch, all the spiritual energies was being infused into a seedling. Now the seedling has so much energy and so much vitality, and it has been placed into new soil, not old soil. Remember, this is a new world order, a new faith of God. And remember, this is so this soil is a good soil, right? And so this new soil is now energized with this new seedling and new faith of God. And so much energy is being infused into it, and it is growing every day. And it is growing slowly. It's not growing super fast. Remember, there's two processes at play, and we talked about those twin processes, the disintegration and the process of integration. The process of integration is the growth of this faith of God and the work that we are doing. So it is growing, but it's growing slow. But what happens is at this magical point of this emergence of out of obscurity into, it's now the seedling is poking its head out of the soil. And for the first time, the world can see this community. And this is an incredible event. Now, for the first time, we're not just, hey, I've never heard of this Baha'i before. I've never heard of this. Granted, many people may still have not heard of it, but now the faith of God is, there are communities all around the world. There's literature in most languages. So if you really want to find it, you can find it. And many a chance, people will know of a Baha'i because there are Baha'is all around the world. So this is the first time, at this point in the stage of time, the emergence of the faith out of obscurity. So this was an incredible letter coming from the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice. Then we entered another incredible epoch. This was the Fourth Epoch, okay? So now we're transitioning into this Fourth Epoch. The Fourth Epoch began in 1986. The Universal House of Justice announced the inception of this new epoch of the Formative Age in a letter dated the 2nd of January, 1986 to the Baha'is of the world. The Fourth Epoch highlighted the significant developments that had occurred in the organic growth of the cause of God. So this is a very important language. How many times are we hearing this organic growth, right? In these unfoldment of the plans coming recently. So this is coming in the Fourth Epoch, the organic growth of the cause of God during the Third Epoch. In the previous epochs, the national plans were largely derived from the Baha'i World Center. So it was top down. So the plans were coming from the top. Now, in the Fourth Epoch, in this epoch, the specific goals for each national community were formulated within the framework of the overall objectives of the plan through consultation between national spiritual assemblies and the Continental Board of Counselors. So this was happening in the Fourth Epoch. So now the plans were formulated from the national spiritual assemblies and Continental Counselors. This is a development that occurred during the Fourth Epoch from 1986. And so then that was a period for Fourth Epoch was 1986 to 2001. Then Fifth Epoch started, 2001. And I was actually there I was at this historic occasion. I was there 2 days before all these wonderful souls attended, because I was there on pilgrimage and I was visiting my brother at the World Center. And I actually served in the printing press, making the ink for this historic document announcing the Fifth Epoch. So that was a really cool experience. So the Fifth Epoch started in 2001. The Universal House of Justice announced the inception of this epoch of the Formative Age in a letter dated 16th January 2001 to the Baha'is of the world. And this was in reference, it says, as the construction projects on Mount Carmel approached their completion, and as the internal processes of institutional consolidation and the external processes towards world unity become more fully synchronized, the extraordinary dynamics at work throughout the conference crystallized these indications into a recognizable reality. So this was the achievements of the construction projects, as well as internal processes of consolidation, as well as the external processes of the world coming together closer in a world unity, achieved that level in 2001. So right now we're still in the Fifth Epoch, okay, in 2001. So, and additional epochs can be anticipated in the Formative Age, as the tasks to be completed in this age are many and challenging. And the Will and Testament of Abdu'l-Baha provides the link between the Heroic Age and the Formative Age. So that's another great document. And we have, oh, Riaz John, you have a hand. Please, go ahead. Don't forget to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. A quick question. This Fifth Epoch
Yes.
that started in 2001, is this the epoch in the Formative Age where this sequence of 5-year plans started? We have had...
I will show you the slide which will answer your question. Okay? So this slide will answer your question. So there's 2 periods of epochs, okay? So you can see here, the Heroic Age, okay, has 3 epochs. Can you see this? First epoch, second epoch, third epoch. This is to do with the ministries of the Bab, Baha'u'lláh, Abdu'l-Baha, okay? Then the Formative Age has, you can see first epoch was 1937 to roughly 44, 46, okay? Then the second epoch, okay, was from 46 to right here to 63, okay? 63 to 86 was third epoch. Fourth epoch, 86 to 2001, and fifth epoch is 2001 to, we're not sure. We don't know when the Fifth Epoch will end. So this is an illustration of the epochs, okay, of the Formative Age going in this period. Then there's epochs under the tablets of the divine plan, okay, which is, these start with at the period of 1937, which was the first 7-year plan launching, okay? So there's epochs under the starting from really from 1921, okay, and is continuing, but there's also epochs under the tablets of the divine plan, and that starts with 1937. So if you read the Rezvan message, which every one of you should have read, you would have read that we just entered the third epoch of under the tablets of the divine plan. Okay, so this is the launch, and this was in 2021 Rezvan message. So you can see the periods. First epoch was from 1937 all the way to 63. Okay, this is the period. And then from 1963, second epoch, all the way to 2021. And now 2021, we've just entered the third epoch under Tablets of Abdu'l-Baha. So Tablets of the Divine Plan. So these are the two different periods. But as to your question of the period, the plans from the Universal House of Justice, you can see these plans, the 5-year plan, 5-year plan, 5-year plan, 5-year plan, and all of these are plans that are becoming from the Supreme Body, Universal House of Justice. These are plans that are technically under both, really, because they're, it's under the period of the Fifth Epoch of the Formative Age, and it's also has been under the Second Epoch of the Tablets of the Divine Plan. Now we're entering the Third Epoch under the Tablets of the Divine Plan. I just entered the 1-year plan, and we'll be entering, after following that, we'll be entering into a 9-year plan. So these are the plans that are part of the Third Epoch under the Tablets of the Divine Plan. I hope that helped answer your question, Rios John. But
yes. What? Yes, partially. That my complete question is, there have seen the House of Justice has commented that, if I'm not mistaken, that for the past 25 years, this plans have been forthcoming for the past 25 years, focusing on the institute process, mainly the institute process building capacity. So I was under the impression that these 25 years were comprised of five-year plans, but apparently we have here at the bottom 1986. 1985 is what I remember, but it seems that around 1985 or 86, this whole program of the institute process and capacity building is when this new program has started, if I'm not mistaken.
It's really was emerging from 1996, from the 4-year plan over here. So from the 4-year plan, then there was a 12-month plan, and then it started with four 5-year plans.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It was really starting from around 1996.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That sounds right. So the 4-year plan, starting in 1996, plus the 12-month plan, that comprises 5 years.
Right.
A total of 5 years, plus 4 5-year plans. That makes a total of
25.
A cumulative five periods of 5 years, or
4 periods of 5 is 20.
With that 4-year plan and the 1-year plan, so basically 25 years.
That's correct.
Starting in 1996 is when the introduction of the institute process and capacity building is my impression, has been my.
That's correct. Excellent. Thank you, Riaz John. Okay, so just moving back. So now we're just going to finish 2 slides covering the Golden Age, and then we will transition to paragraphs 4 and 5. So the Golden Age is that stage of perfection and the realization of the goals of the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. The initial stages of the Golden Age will be synchronized with the emergence of a world community, the consciousness of a world citizenship, and the founding of a world civilization and culture. The beloved guardian Shaykh Effendi regards such developments as the furthermost limits in the organization of human society, though man as an individual must indeed, as a result of such a consummation, continue indefinitely to progress and develop. And this is a wonderful quote from the beloved guardian. This is in Promised Day Has Come. It says, God's purpose is none other than to usher in ways he alone can bring about, and the full significance of which he alone can fathom, the great, the golden age of a long divided, a long afflicted humanity. Its present state, indeed, even its immediate future is dark, distressingly dark. Its distant future, however, is radiant, gloriously radiant, so radiant that no eye can visualize it. Another point I just want to share is that just like the heroic age, just like the formative age, the golden age will also have epochs. So there will be stages within the golden age. It's not like, okay, yeah, we're really, really working so hard in the formative age through myriads of epochs, and then boom, we're now at the golden age. No, there will also be stages within the golden age. So that is also the words from the beloved guardian on that. Okay, so now that concludes our study of paragraphs 1 through 3. So we can now transition to paragraphs 4 through 5. Is there any questions on the first 3 paragraphs before we transition? And so wonderful to see everyone. And now I'm going to share my screen for our next study. Okay, here we go. Okay. Now, paragraphs 4 through 5. In these paragraphs, the beloved guardian is now addressing the forces of the twin revelations. This is so cool, as well as the effectiveness of the institutions, as well as fundamental verities. We're going to really explore fundamental verities. Okay, so I'm going to call on our first reader, and we have the supreme privilege of our dear friend from Coppell, Miss Pamela. If you could, Miss Pamela, if you could read this one for us, please go ahead.
Sure. Dearly loved friends, the onrushing forces so miraculously released through the agency of 2 independent and swiftly successive manifestations are now under our very eyes, and through the care of the chosen stewards of a far-flung faith being gradually mustered and disciplined, they are slowly crystallizing into institutions that will come to be regarded as the hallmark and glory of the age we are called upon to establish, and by our deeds immortalize. For upon our present day efforts, and above all upon the extent to which we strive to remodel our lives after the pattern of sublime heroism associated with those gone before us, must depend the efficacy of the instruments we now fashion. Instruments that must direct the structure of that blissful commonwealth, which must signalize the golden age of our faith.
Thank you, Pam. Excellently read. Thank you. Okay, and our next one, David, could you read this one for us? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
There.
There you go.
Okay. Whoops, come on. There. It is not my purpose, as I look back upon these crowded years of heroic deeds, to attempt even a cursory review of the mighty events that have transpired since 1844 until the present day. Nor have I any intention to undertake an analysis of the forces that have precipitated them, or to evaluate their influence upon peoples and institutions in almost every continent of the globe. The authentic record of the lives of the first believers of the primitive period of our faith, together with the assiduous research which competent Baha'i institutions will in the future undertake, will combine to transmit to posterity such masterly exposition of the history of that age as my own efforts can never hope to accomplish. My chief concern at this challenging period of Baha'i history is rather to call the attention of those who are destined to be the champion builders of the administrative order of Baha'u'lláh to certain fundamental verities, the elucidation of which must tremendously assist them in the effective prosecution of their mighty enterprise.
Wonderfully read, David. Do you have a question? Go for it.
I was going to say that for those who have just this little small book, which says the Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh by itself, this is on page 6.
Page 6, excellent. Yeah, I had a copy of that at my parents' house and I couldn't find it, but thank you, dear David. That's an excellent addition too. So yes, so the beloved guardian here in paragraph 5, what humility in this paragraph. What humility, I love it. He's saying he's not here to give us a complete history of the events of the period that transpired from 1844 until the present day, which is 1934. Granted, he did that, in his mastery book of God Passes By from 1844 to 1944. And he also did the incredible work of translation of the Dawnbreakers. So he did a lot of history, but he's saying in this one, the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, this is not meant to be a historical review of the events and during this period. But what he is intending to do, and it was very wonderfully read by David, it says here, what he is intending to do is rather bring to attention of those who are destined to be the champion builders of the administrative order of Baha'u'lláh to certain fundamental verities, the elucidation of which must tremendously assist them in the effective prosecution of their mighty enterprise. So this, my dear friends, is what this whole book, technically letter, is all about. Okay? What is the Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh about? It is meant to bring certain fundamental verities to our attention as Baha'is. Okay? So, moving on. Okay? So, Miss Claudia, if you could read this one for us.
Okay. In paragraphs 4 to 5, the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, describes how the spiritual forces released through the revelation of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh have been crystallized into institutions of the world order of Baha'u'lláh under the care of the chosen stewards of the faith. The main purpose of writing this letter, the beloved guardian states, was to clarify some important fundamental verities of the faith, and to those who are building the Baha'i administrative order in order to assist them in effectively undertaking their important task.
Great, thank you, Miss Claudia. So what are these fundamental verities? And don't forget to mute yourselves, dear friends. So there we go. So we don't have any background noise. So what are these fundamental verities? What is this dispensation of Baha'u'lláh? These fundamental verities are, who is the Bab? What is his station? Who is Baha'u'lláh? What is his station? How is he related to the Bab in that sense? What is their significance? What is the relation of the manifestations of God? And then another really big one, who is Abdul Baha? What is his station? And then what is the administrative order? And that is, what is the administrative order? And that comprises of that last part that comprises of the guardianship and the universal house of justice, the administrative order. So this is what is the fundamental verities? These are fundamental questions. Every single Baha'i should be able to answer. who is the Bab, who is Baha'u'lláh, who is Abdul Baha, and what is the administrative order, because this is at the very essence of what it means to be a Baha'i. So these are the fundamental verities. Okay, now the major key points. Okay, the major key points. In the opening paragraph of the letter, the beloved guardian reflects on the evidences that convince every impartial observer of those eternal truths that motivate the life of the faith of Baha'u'lláh and must continue to drive it towards its destined sovereignty. These eternal truths are those aspects of a revelation that do not change from one dispensation to another. The beloved guardian outlines the station of the central figures of the Baha'i faith and highlights their distinction. The heroic age started with the declaration of the Bab on 23rd May 1844 and ended with the passing of Abdul Baha, 28th November 1921. Okay, moving on, dear friends. What are these forces of the twin revelations? The forces of the twin revelations. This is something I find so awesome. The power that has been infused and injected by coming of these twin manifestations of God. In paragraph 4, the beloved guardian Shaykh Effendi describes the process through which the Baha'i administrative order is emerging. The mighty spiritual forces released through the revelations of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh are the original substance of these institutions. During the formative age, the energies latent in these forces are crystallizing into the institutions of the Baha'i faith through the care of the chosen followers of Baha'u'lláh. Such institutions will become the glory and hallmark of the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. And this is coming from the advent of divine justice, something that many of us have recently studied in great detail. In many of his letters, Shaykh Effendi has described the nature and impact of the creative spiritual forces released through the twin revelations of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh. He describes that God-born force as irresistible in its sweeping power, incalculable in its potency, unpredictable in its course, mysterious in its working, and awe-inspiring in its manifestations. A force which, as the blessed Bab has written, vibrates within the innermost being of all created things, and which, according to Baha'u'lláh, has through its vibrating influence upset the equilibrium of the world and revolutionized its ordered life. Beloved guardian Shaykh Effendi also refers to this force as limitless in its range and incalculable in its potency. So the coming about of these twin manifestations have literally vibrated the innermost being of all created things, whether they're conscious, whether they're aware of it or not. All created things, their inner energies are vibrating. So when you open your mouth and connect the individuals to the electricity per se, they don't know where the energy is within their heart. They know this is the age. They know that this is the time, because there is something different about this age. But when you connect it to the source, it's like the bulb connected to the electricity. And the electricity is the word, the creative word. And in this day and age, it's Baha'u'lláh. And when you connect the creative word to the bulb, that is the connection. And whether they take it willingly or not, they feel that current. It's up to them. Remember, all you can do is just say, here is the current, here is the source, and provide it lovingly. Whether they want to, per se, turn the switch on or off, that is up to them. But you provide them, you say, here is the current. Here is the source. Here is the word of God. And that, my dear friends, when you provide them and say, this is the electricity of this day and age, and if they take it, they feel it. It empowers them, because this is the electricity of this day and age. And in a different dispensation, it was His Holiness Jesus Christ. And in another dispensation, it was His Holiness Muhammad. But it's the same current. Electricity is electricity. Yes, go ahead, Riaz John. You have your hand, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. At the bottom of this display, we see the sentence where Shaykh Effendi also refers to this force as limitless in its range,
right,
and incalculable in its potency. So this is a very striking statement, claim, that we are completely unable to understand its limitless range and its incalculable potency. Now, the charts that you showed about the ages and the epochs, based on these statements from Shaykh Effendi, those charts, those ages and those epochs really reflect human history, this new stage in human history. Those are actual events. Those charts reflect actual events in the history of mankind. So they're not an imaginary, those are not imaginary graphs or imaginary thoughts. Those are actual events in the history of mankind. And this new civilization, this new cycle is really documented down to the minute. Why? When the Bab declared his mission, he announced to Mullah Hussein, this night, this day and this night will be celebrated for, sorry, for ages and ages to come. And we know to the minute when that happened.
That's right.
Year 1844, month May, day 22, the time 11 minutes after sunset. So this new cycle has been documented from the initial minute when it occurred. So we're living in a new cycle with new, I mean, everything is new and is completely documented as factual.
Excellent point, dear Riaz John. That's absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Ehsan, I have some questions on this regard.
Okay, dear Tesfaye. Let's hear
When
it.
you come to the twin manifestations and the twin revelations, I know that is to be, the Bab is to become first before Baha'u'lláh. And then is the Bab the end of Adamic cycle, or is the beginning of the Baha'i cycle, where he stand, his station?
So
Because
the Adamic cycle started with Adam, okay?
yeah, and then ended to the Bab, right? Not to Muhammad, but ended to the Bab. And then the new cycle, the Baha'i cycle, started from Baha'u'lláh. This is my understanding.
The Baha'i cycle started with the Bab. So the Baha'i cycle started with the Bab.
How would you prove that? So because his station, he is a return of Imam, and he is not the fulfillment of all the prophecies of the past religion, because he is the return of the promised one.
Okay,
and that is to be called the 12 Imam, the 12 Imam.
Okay.
But Baha'u'lláh is the only one is to be the fulfillment of all the prophecies of the past.
No problem, dear Tesfaye. I will show you, and so you will have complete clarity on this, okay? Because I want because if one person has a question, it means someone else might have a question on this. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, this is a review. So in our review, these are the cycle. Okay, the Baha'i cycle is destined to last 500,000 years. Okay, the Baha'i cycle. But the era, the Baha'i era, okay, the period of the dispensation we are comprising of the dispensations of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh, is the Baha'i era, okay? It's the Bab and Baha'u'lláh. The dispensation of Baha'u'lláh is 1,000 years, okay? Now, as to your question, this is the period of the Baha'i era comprises of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh. So there was a better slide than I wanted to show on this one. It is this one. Yes, here we go. Okay, so in this slide, you could see from the beginning, okay? From the very beginning is the Adamic cycle. Can you see this, my dear Tesfaya?
Yes, I can see it, and I have a question on the cycles too.
Okay, good, good. I'm happy. Questions are important, okay? I know we will jump going back, but I want you to understand. So the Adamic cycle is from here. It is a period of Kura Adam, has all of these manifestations of God in it. But then starting with His Holiness the Bab, okay? The Bab.
So it's indices the Bab.
So it's from the period of the Bab, okay?
Yeah,
From
yeah.
the Bab is now the Baha'i dispensation, okay? This is now the Baha'i cycle starts from the period starting from the Bab, the dispensation of, as you mentioned prior in this slide, it says the Baha'i era is dispensations of the Bab and Baha'u'lláh. So this period is the Baha'i era, but the Baha'i cycle is also starting with the start of the Bab. Okay, can you see that, everyone? So I just wanted that to be clear. So it's not, oh, we're in Baha'i cycle is starting with Baha'u'lláh. No, it starts from 1844, Declaration of the Bab. So this is the Baha'i cycle. And the Baha'i cycle will last for a period of 500,000 years.
Okay, I have a question right here.
Okay.
Because the Bab dispensation period is only 6 years.
No,
and Baha'u'lláh is declared in 1863. From 1863 is his dispensation is started for 1,000 years. And then the Baha'i cycle is started from Baha'u'lláh to 500 years, not from the Bab. But Bab is the interconnection of the old cycle and the new cycle. He's in between.
Okay, dear Tesfai, pause for a second. Okay, so you're correct. 1844 to 1850 was 6 years. But that doesn't constitute the ministry of the Bab. The ministry of the Bab was 9 years, okay? So even after his passing, okay? So even after the passing of His Holiness the Bab, the ministry of the Bab continued. And so it was 1844 to 1853, okay? So in 1853 to 1892 is the ministry of Baha'u'lláh. Then from 1892 to more particularly to the passing of the greatest holy leaf in 1923 was the ministry of Abdul Baha, and then starting of the Formative Age. Okay, so as to your question, it's not 6 years, the ministry of the Bab, it was 9 years. Okay, so dear Tesfai, if you have further questions on this, we can answer it. You can shoot me an email on this, okay? Because we need to get back to our session on paragraphs 4 through 5, okay?
Okay, the second question is to be about the cycle. Every messenger of God, they have their own cycle, calendars, and everything when they come in. And then one of the Baha'u'llah's mission is to be oneness of the religion, oneness of mankind, oneness of religion, oneness of humankind, and oneness of God. Those three principles that we have. And then now, according to the religion, and religion is all one, and then in his pen, Baha'u'llah say, one phase for all religion, and there is no different phases. And that phase is to be the changeless phase of God, eternal in the past and eternal in the future.
Okay.
So now, why we need the bigger cycle, Adamic cycle and Baha'i cycle? What's the purpose of this cycle for humanity?
Okay, good question, dear Tesfai. So if you understand the purpose of these manifestations of God, why they have each one of them come from His Holiness Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. Each one of them were manifestations of God in their own right. They also had another role and duty, and that was being prophetic, okay? Prophetic, means they were prophesizing of one who will come. He whom God shall make manifest, the one that will come. And in one age, His Holiness Jesus Christ called him the Father. In another dispensation, they called him the Maitreya, the 12th Gautama Buddha. So every one of them prophesied about one to come. And that one would be coming to bring all humanity together, to bring everyone all under one fold. So all of these different manifestations of God, this was during the Adamic cycle, the prophetic cycle, because they were prophesizing about one would come. Now, during this period, starting of the Baha'i cycle, which is also called the cycle of fulfillment, meaning that all of these great divine lights, now everything that they had said has become fulfilled, meaning that everything they had said has now come to pass. And now this period is going to last 500,000 years. And it's the start of coming from the time period of the Blessed Bab and under the dispensation of Baha'u'lláh, and obviously there will be many more future revelations that will be under this Baha'i cycle. So that was an explanation that these manifestations of God, these messengers of God, these divine teachers all spoke about that there will be one who will bring fulfillment. And in this day and age, the Bab and Baha'u'lláh have fulfilled what they were speaking about. Okay, so that was my answer, dear Tesfai. We have to carry on. I appreciate your questions, okay?
I don't want to take time. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, dear Tesfai. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, sorry about that, dear friends. Let me get back into our session. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, so moving on. Let me full screen this. Sorry about that. Okay, so we were talking about the forces of these twin revelations. And this is again from the Advent of Divine Justice. It says, regarding the influence of this force, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi states, such a force acting even as a two-edged sword is under our very eyes, sundering on the one hand the age-old ties which for centuries have held together the fabric of civilized society, and is unloosening on the other the bonds that still fetter the infant and as yet unemancipated faith of Baha'u'lláh. So one is cutting with great power and great force these age-old centuries, these age-old ties, namely the old world ideas, and it's slashing at them. And the other is what is unloosening the bonds that still fetter the infant and as unemancipated faith of Baha'u'lláh. So the other one is freeing the bonds and ties of this unemancipated faith of Baha'u'lláh. So one is tearing down and cutting these age-old ideas and customs and dogmatic ways, and the other one is, per se, if that little sapling is trying to poke its head up, it's removing the soil and cutting away any obstructions for the faith of Baha'u'lláh to emerge into this world. You follow? So this is the forces that are at play that have been infused by the coming of these twin revelations. And so this is from Hebrews in the Bible. It says, "For the word of God is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword." Isn't that cool? "And piercing as far as the division of soul and spirit, of both joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart." So there it is. I love that. I love how the beloved guardian, obviously knows the Bible and the Quran so well, and he just ties it all together. So here he's saying the word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword. And so prior, we just read from the beloved guardian is saying how this force, and what is this force? The force is the word of God. That's what the force is. The force of Baha'u'lláh, the coming about of the twin revelations is the force of the revelations of the manifestation. And here in the Hebrews, it says the force of the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, and piercing as far as the division of soul and spirit, of both joints and marrow, able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. So really, dear friends, what is he saying here in Hebrews? He's saying this is judgment day. That's what he's saying, the two-edged sword. This is what is happening right now. He's saying that this is the thoughts and intentions of the heart are going to be judged. Now, carrying on with this forces of the twin revelations that we read about in paragraph 4. And this is in another letter from the beloved guardian. He points out that the revelation of Baha'u'lláh inaugurates the stage of humanity in the development of humanity. Hence, Baha'u'llah's appearance has released such spiritual forces which will continue to animate for many long years to come. The forces which will continue to animate for many long years to come the world in its development. Although there will be many manifestations of God after Baha'u'lláh, they will be all under his shadow. Although they may abrogate the laws of the dispensation in accordance with the needs and requirements of the age in which they appear, they nevertheless draw their spiritual force from this mighty revelation.
All right, I have a question right here. So
Okay,
now,
please.
after Baha'u'lláh, there are a lot of dispensations coming, and all of them are to be under his shadows. What does
That's
that
right.
mean?
Okay, so if you recall from the past diagram, I had it showing that arc was the Baha'i cycle.
Mhm.
That Baha'i cycle would last 500,000 years, okay? 500,000 years, okay? The dispensation of Baha'u'lláh will last 1,000 years, okay? So, but the Baha'i cycle is 500,000 years, okay? So that's why it says that under Baha'u'lláh, see, he says there will be under his shadow, but the manifestations of God after Baha'u'lláh, they may abrogate the laws and after Baha'u'lláh, but they will all nevertheless draw their spiritual force from this mighty revelation. You follow?
Yeah, but Baha'u'lláh is the fulfillment of all the past religion, and then so his dispensations last for 1,000 years. But I was thinking that will be enough, and then the next manifestation of God, when he comes, he has his own cycle, and he has his own authority, and he has own laws and ordinances and everything.
Dear
But why
Tesfaye,
is going?
Dear
Why
Tesfaye,
is going
you're
to be
mixing up
under the
terminology. You're mixing up terminology, okay? There's the word dispensation, okay? Not cycle, okay? The dispensation is a period for the length of each manifestation of God. It's how, okay? Now, a cycle is a different terminology, okay? A cycle is, there was the Adamic cycle, it started from Adam, and then it ended with the Blessed Bob. That was 6,000 years. So now starting from the Blessed Bob, and for under the Baha'i cycle, it will last 500,000 years, okay? Now, every manifestation of God, their dispensation is 1,000 years. Baha'u'llah's dispensation will be 1,000 years. Now, after Baha'u'llah will be another manifestation of God. After that manifestation of God will be another manifestation of God, and there will be another one. But all these manifestations of God after Baha'u'llah, they will all still be under this Baha'i cycle for 500,000 years. And this is what the beloved guardian is saying. They will all continue to animate for many years longs to come, but they will nevertheless draw their spiritual force from this mighty revelation. Okay, so that is the answer, dear Tesfaye. Granted, there will be.
It is clear, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on.
It may be easy to remember the distinction between dispensation and cycle. When Abdul Baha used the term universal cycles, Abdul Baha says in history, there are universal cycles, and the Adamic is a universal cycle, and the Baha'i cycle is a universal cycle. That may help find the distinction between a universal cycle and a dispensation.
It's a very good point, dear Riazan, because a cycle incorporates the multiple dispensations within it, okay? When you say universal cycle, as you saw, the Adamic cycle had Adam, it had Abraham, it had Moses, it had Krishna, it had Buddha, it had His Holiness Jesus Christ, it had Muhammad, and all those manifestations of their dispensations were in the Adamic cycle. Now we're in the Baha'i cycle, and now there is 2 dispensations already within this cycle. There's the Blessed Bob's dispensation and Baha'u'llah's, okay? And this will be a period of 1,000 years within this dispensation, okay? So, and then we'll have another.
Is there any indications that how many messenger of God is coming in this Baha'i cycle?
Well, we know the Baha'i cycle will be at least 500,000 years. So you can do the math on it. So 500,000 divided by 1,000. And then you can know roughly how many manifestations will be in it. So just there, you will probably 500, messengers of God will be roughly within the cycle of the Baha'i cycle. And all of them will draw their spiritual force from this mighty revelation.
But that cycle is to be longer than Adamic cycle.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, the Adamic cycle was only 6,000 years. This is 500,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Moving on, dear Tesfaye. Thank you. Okay. The beloved guardian further explains in this letter, whatever progress may be achieved in the later ages after the unification of the whole human race is achieved will be but improvement in the machinery of the world. For the machinery itself has already been created by Baha'u'llah. The task of continually improving and perfecting this machinery is one that later prophets will be called upon to achieve. They will move and work within the orbit of the Baha'i cycle. So there you go. That's from the beloved guardian. They will work and move within the Baha'i cycle. Okay, now we're going to be addressing the effectiveness of the institutions. I'm checking my time. We're getting close to the end of class. We've got roughly 10 minutes. So my dear Tesfaye, if you could tone down your questions so we can see how fast we can get through the last slides, okay? So in paragraph 4, the beloved guardian expounds on the elements that will ensure the effectiveness of institutions of the faith developed during the formative age. He identifies 2 factors: the degree of the efforts that we make and the extent to which we attempt to model our lives on the exemplary bravery and sacrifice exercised by the believers. This, my dear friends, is so, and you know how they do it in cartoons, so, and there's a lot of O's, so important, okay? So this is so important. These are the two factors, okay, that demonstrate the effectiveness of your institution. If you're serving on a spiritual assembly, if you're serving on any agency of a cluster or any institution, these two factors determine your effectiveness, okay? The degree of the efforts to which you make, okay? How much are you putting in, right? How much are you putting in? How much are you sacrificing? And then the second one, the extent to which we attempt to model our lives on the exemplary bravery and sacrifices exercised by the early believers. It's one thing to say, hey, I read this wonderful book about this, person, blah, blah, and it's such a great book. I love this person. So he's so amazing. But then it's another thing to say, okay, that's that person's life. How can I transform my inner life and my external conditions to mirror forth that person's life in my life? And think about real life concrete examples of how I can transform my day to become a better me. And then every night, bring yourself to account, right? It's not just about, hey, I read this great book about Mr. X or Mrs. Y, right? It's about actually putting it into practice. That's what the whole of Advent to Divine Justice was about. We studied together. It's about putting it into practice. Now, this is a slide I'm proud of, Ehsan is proud of, because this was my own understanding of this verbiage. And this is unique to Ehsan. So I'm going to share this slide to you. The beloved guardian refers to the Baha'i institutions as an instrument, channeling the spiritual forces released through the twin revelations. So they're channeling the energies. Now imagine when the manifestations of God comes. He is just awe. It's just power. It's just energy, right? And it's just like, boom, the whole world is in just blast of energy, meteoric energy just hitting the world. Now, what is these institutions? They are channeling the spiritual forces released through the twin revelations towards the erection of this Baha'i world commonwealth that will signal the advent of the golden age of the Baha'i faith. So when I was picturing, how can I have a visual imagery of the institutions of the faith canalizing the spiritual energies? This was my inspiration. The institutions of the cause are like these pylon electrical towers, and they are canalizing the energies, transmitting them to the world, to community, to community, to community, to community. And the large ones are the National Spiritual Assemblies, and then they transmit them to the local communities, the local spiritual assemblies, and canalizing the spiritual forces and the energies from one area to another. So that was my own inspiration. I take full credit. But that was how, when I was reading this, I was like, how can you visually put into a picture how these spiritual forces are being channeled? And so that was my inspirational moment. I thought it was a cool, I don't know, dear friends, I don't know what you think, but I thought it was interesting. So I think we got a few more slides, and checking time because we try to stay punctual. We got 5 minutes. Okay. As an instrument, the Baha'i administration is not a replacement for the faith, but a channel through which his Baha'u'llah's promised blessings may flow. So what is this Baha'i administration? It's the channel. And that was the imagery here. This is the channel. This is the Baha'i administration. It's channeling the spiritual forces, the spiritual energies that flow from these twin revelations to humanity. The beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi warns the believers against any rigidity in the Baha'i administration. as it would clog and fetter the liberating forces released by his revelation. Now, this is something so cool, and I want you to remember this because right now we're just at the very, 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 very start of our course. Now, the last paragraph of Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh, the beloved guardian, again, he comes and says, I have one final warning. One final warning. And I'm just going to pull that because it's so awesome. It's his last words. And it's in the last paragraph. He says, let no one, while this system is still in its infancy, misconceive its character, belittle its significance, or misrepresent its purpose. So this is in paragraph 127 on page 156 of Dispensation of Bahá'u'lláh. So at the very last warning, the final warning of the beloved guardian, he says, do not misconceive its character, do not belittle this administrative order, and under any condition, he's warning the friends against any rigidity in this Baha'i administration, okay? Because what it would do, it would clog and fetter the liberating forces released by his revelation. That reminds me of the arterial flow that is pulsating from this vibrating heart that is being brought into this world. And this rigidity would be like chunks and clogs of fat that just blocks your arteries, right? And you don't want that. You want a beautiful flow of blood pulsating through all the organs and members of this world community. And you don't want any rigidity in your the flow. So this Baha'i administration is only the first shaping of what in future will come to be the social life and laws of community living. Okay, now jumping to paragraph 5. This is the fundamental verities that dear David read so well. This is the paragraph that now we're talking about, fundamental verities. In paragraph 5, the beloved guardian describes his purpose in writing his letter. Firstly, he stresses that his intention was not to review the great events that occurred from the inception of the faith of the cause in 1844 up to the time of this writing. And it was not to analyze the spiritual forces originating those events or the impact of those forces on peoples and institutions of nearly every continent of the world. It really was because he said there will be future historians that will do this much greater than myself. And that really is showing his humility. I mean, really. So, but then the beloved guardian carries on. And this is what he's saying about these fundamental verities. He says, at that particular stage in the history of the Baha'i faith, the beloved guardian rather intended to explain certain fundamental verities of the faith, the understanding of which would greatly assist in the endeavor of those who are building the Baha'i administrative order. The fundamental verities of the Baha'i faith are many and include truths and realities that form the core of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh. And in a letter written on his behalf to an individual, the beloved guardian explains that by verities of the faith, he means the great teachings and fundamentals enshrined in our Baha'i literature. These we can find by, this is what we got to do. We got to be reading the books, studying under Baha'i scholars at summer schools and in classes, and through the aid of study outlines. So this is how we're going to unlock what are these fundamental verities. This is the beloved guardian outlines it. He says, these are the great teachings and the fundamentals enshrined in our faith. Okay. I have like 4 more slides. We're exactly at 8:30. So class, should we carry on or should we pause here as to stay punctual for today? What does everyone say?
Present the 4 slides fairly quickly.
Okay.
You can review next time.
Yeah, so we'll have a clean transition for next time. Okay, we'll do that. Let's do that. Okay, so the Universal House of Justice explains Consolidation must compromise not only establishment of the Baha'i administrative institutions, but a true deepening in the fundamental verities of the cause and in its spiritual principles. This is from the Supreme Body. The Universal House of Justice then it identifies the concepts which the believers should strive to consolidate. So this is from the Rezvan Message 1964. It says, understanding of the faith's prime purpose in the establishment of the unity of mankind, instruction in its standard of behavior in all aspects of private and public life, in the particular practice of Baha'i life in such things as daily prayer, education of children, observance of the laws of Baha'i marriage, abstention from politics, the obligation to contribute to the fund, the importance of the 19-day feast and opportunity to acquire a sound knowledge of the present day practice of Baha'i administration. So these outline, the Universal House of Justice outlined right here is the prime purpose and constitute some of the spiritual principles, some of the fundamental verities of what the faith stands for. Okay, this was in the Rezvan Message 1964. The beloved guardian wrote in a letter to the All America International Teaching Conference, which gathered in 1953, that the house of worship is dedicated to the fundamental verities, animating and underlying the Baha'i faith, the unity of God, the unity of his prophets, the unity of mankind. So again, dear friends, what are the fundamental verities? These are the unities, the three unities, unity of God, the unity of his prophets, and the unity of mankind. So these are at the striving to obtain a greater understanding of the fundamental verities of our faith should be animating purpose of our life. And these are the sum of the fundamental verities that I'm outlining here. Now, I'm going to, this is an awesome letter. You can, if you Google search Fundamental Verities Baha'i Library, you will see the full letter. So this is just a portion of this letter. It's on the Baha'i Library website. If you search Fundamental Verities Baha'i Library, you'll see the full letter. So this is a good portion of that letter from the Universal House of Justice. This was written almost exactly 25 years 11, 12, and 2 days from now. So, okay, so this is 25 years ago, this letter. The term fundamental verities was often used in the correspondence of the Guardian when introducing the basic aspects of the faith in which all of the believers should be deepened and grounded, as for example, above all, the paramount duty of deepening the spiritual life of these newly fledged, these precious and highly esteemed co-workers, and of enlightening their minds regarding the essential verities enshrined in their faith and its fundamental institutions, its history and genesis, the twin covenants of Bahá'u'lláh and of Abdu'l-Baha, the present administrative order, the future world order, the laws of the Most Holy Book, the inseparable institutions of the guardianship and of the Universal House of Justice, the salient events of the heroic and formative ages of the faith and its relationship with the dispensations that have preceded it, its attitude towards the social and political organizations by which it is surrounded, must constitute the most vital aspect of the great spiritual crusade launched by the champions of the faith from the shores of their native land. Above all, the utmost endeavor should be exerted by your assembly to familiarize the newly enrolled believers with the fundamental and spiritual verities of the faith, and with the origins, the aims and purposes, as well as the processes of a divinely appointed administrative order, to acquaint them more fully with the history of the faith, to instill in them a deeper understanding of the covenants of both Baha'u'lláh and Abdu'l-Baha, to enrich their spiritual life, to rouse them to a greater effort and a closer participation in both the teaching of the faith and the administration of its activities, and to inspire them to make the necessary sacrifices for the furtherance of its vital interests, For as the body of the avowed supporters of the faith is enlarged, and the basis of the structure of its administrative order is broadened, and the fame of the rising community spreads far and wide, a parallel progress must be achieved if the fruits already garnered are to endure in the spiritual quickening of its members and the deepening of their inner life. The letter carries on. It says, there is no absolute list of fundamental verities, and the friends should not make an issue of this matter by attempting to codify these verities. So this was a letter from the Supreme Body, and you can find it. This is the date, November 12th, 1996. It's on the Baha'i Library website, and it's, you just search for fundamental verities. And in you can see how many different places there all these fundamental verities are. So I'm not making a list, but as the universe has suggested, do not codify a list, but you can see all the different, per se, fundamentals of what our faith are, the spiritual verities are. Acquaint them with the history, instill in them deeper understanding of the covenants, Baha'u'lláh, Abdu'l-Baha, enriched in spiritual life. All of these constitute the unity of God, the unity of the prophets, unity of mankind, all of these requirements, the daily prayer, education of children, particular practice of Baha'i life, obligation to the fund, all of these constitute as our fundamental verities. So there we are, dear friends. That constitutes paragraphs 4 through 5 of the Dispensation of Baha'u'lláh. And your homework for next week, okay, is to read paragraphs 6 and 7. Okay, so any questions for next time?
Fundamental verities are the whole revelation.
Its fundamental verities are really what this is at the heart of this revelation. It's really what is at the heart of this revelation. And so that's really what, in the sense of the three onenesses, oneness of God, oneness of the prophets, and oneness of mankind. That really is at the very heart of the message of Baha'u'lláh. So, excellent session. Thank you so much for your questions, and thank you, dear Tesfaye, as always. Thank you, every one of you. We're a few minutes over. I apologize for that. We had a myriad of different questions, and so anything else? Let us have a closing prayer, and then we'll shut it down for tonight. Thank you so much. Who would like to share a prayer? Not everybody at once. It gets overwhelming, so who would like to?
I can pray for you.
Thank you, dear Tesfaye. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh God, this is a broken-winged bird, and his flight is very slow. Assist him so that he may fly toward the apex of prosperity and salvation. Wing his way with the utmost joy and happiness throughout the limitable space. Raise his melody in thy supreme name. In all the regions, exhilarate the ears with this call, and brighten the eyes by beholding the signs of guidance. O Lord, I am single, alone and lonely. For me, there is no support save thee, and no helper except thee, and no sustainer besides thee. Confirm me in thy service. Assist me with the chorus of thy angels. Make me victorious in the promotion of thy word, and suffer me to speak out thy wisdom amongst thy creatures. Verily thou art the helper of the weak, and the defender of the little ones. And verily thou art the powerful, the mighty, the unconstrained. Abdu'l-Baha.
All right. Thank you so much, every one of you. Wonderful class.
Thank you.
Esther.
Aloha.
Thank you, Alapa.
Good night. Thank you.